My name is Claire Cameron. My role here is Professor of Social Pedagogy and Deputy Director of Thomas Coram Research Unit. My general area is about care and education for children and young people, often in cross-national contexts. I have lots of different research questions that I try and address. Most of them concern the quality of life for children who are looked after because they can't live with their birth parents. They're called looked after children in Britain. Or another area of work that I look at is children in early childhood care and education institutions. In some countries, when the ideas of care and education are brought together, the field is called social pedagogy. And that's quite prevalent in many mainland European countries and elsewhere in the world. And care and education together means that when you think about the purpose of care, it's not just taking care of somebody, it's also thinking about how they relate to other people and about how the principles of ethics and democracy might come into that relationship, about how people in care, what we think of as being looked after contexts, are actually learning in those contexts and how they're developing and forming their own beings and being self-expressive and having their own sense of citizenship in those contexts. One quite large study I undertook was about the pathways for people who've been in care as children and how they access higher and further education as adults. So for that study, which took place in Denmark, Hungary, Spain, Sweden and England, we looked at what were the barriers and facilitators for young people when they wanted to go to further or higher education. We found that about 6 to 7% of young people from that background go on to further and higher education, compared to about 40 to 50% of all young people in those countries. We had a variety of methodologies. We reviewed the literature, we examined secondary analysis statistics to find out what the prevalence was of attending higher education. We talked to local authority officials, policymakers and practitioners to find out what were the barriers and facilitators to attending higher education. And we talked to young people themselves. We had about 30 to 35 young people in each country. They were between 16 and 24 years of age. And we used a narrative methodology. We asked them about what was happening for them in the present, and then we asked them what was happening for them in the past and what they wanted to happen in the future. We gave them a lot of scope to tell their own story. And through that, we were able to connect large different parts of their lives, whether it was about school, home, work, voluntary work, friendships, all of the components of life that help people to make decisions about their future or not. So we found that many of them had had very fractured experiences in school and at home, as you might imagine, and that very often it was one particular person who had made a difference to their educational life. That person could have been a peer, it could have been someone who was a teacher or a foster carer, but somebody who had paid a particular attention to them and gave education meaning to them.